Today we're going to be talking about my journey from when I started Counter-Strike to where I am today. What we're going to be doing is going to be breaking it up into different segments of videos. So today we're going to be talking about the beginning. So how did I start? Well, as anyone else, I fell in love with computer games. I first started out with Call of Duty, moving on to, World of Warcraft. I didn't really have a specific game that I could play. I then had a teammate named Fady, and he invited me to play Counter Strike. He introduced me to Counter Strike, and I fell in love with this game. There was just something about it that no other game could resonate with me. I felt that I had the energy. I felt that I had the passion. There was just an undying passion for this game. The challenges that I had though was that I was limited to what I could do because I lived in South Africa. When I joined my first team, I joined Flipside. How did I join Flipside? I joined Flipside by just messaging the IGL. I messaged the players and I said, "Hey, I just want to learn. I want to see what you guys are up to. Can I just join as a sub?" I wasn't even a player. I joined as a sub. And I just sat in the scrims. I could spectate. I just watched and learn as much as I could just to, be a sponge. I tried to absorb all the information that I could. And, as a 15-year-old at the time, hearing tactics and things you've never heard before, it was so exciting. It's very, very basic things of today, like someone calling an A execute on Mirage. But, as a 15-year-old, you never knew what that was. But I really wanted to join the team, so I kept pushing. I kept saying to myself, I want to join. So I kept messaging the IGL, I kept messaging the players, and I said, hey, can I join? Like, I really want to be part of it. I don't want to be a sub anymore. And eventually, at one point, their team wasn't really working out, so they removed a player and they got me in. But there was only one problem. I was 15, and one of the biggest South African tournaments at the time, I think it was in 2017, there was a tournament that ESL actually hosted called ESL Africa. And this was the biggest tournament for any South African dream. This is the tournament that South Africans dreamed of, and finally it was on my doorstep. But the further you looked into the rules, you had to be 16 years old to play, and I was only 15. So now we ran into another problem. That was the first time in which I had my first stumble as Gareth. I didn't know how to handle it. But what I started to notice about myself is that I just wanted to learn. I learned about pressure. I learned about stress. I saw how other people were handling different situations. I had one of the players that didn't live far from me, and he actually came and landed at my house, and I could see how he was playing and communicating, and I learned more about settings, and he was showing me video settings and everything, all of the basics about Counter Strike. Once the ESL Africa tournament concluded, we didn't do very well. I just had to watch from the sidelines. But Flipside then disbanded, and I got a new opportunity in Sinister 5. You didn't really earn any salaries from these organizations. If you did earn a salary, you're looking at $100 to $200, if that, maybe even less. And for a South African, that's a lot of money. And Sinister 5 was not the best team, but it was definitely one of the biggest teams that taught me about team synergy and teamwork, and how if you have good team synergy and teamwork, you can beat anyone. We didn't have the best aimers, we didn't have the best players in the country. We for sure didn't have, the team that had the most skill. But what we did have is we had really good synergy and teamwork, and I started to look further and further into that. I started to read books. I started to listen to podcasts. I started to listen to YouTube videos. How do you create a team from scratch without having the best skill? We didn't have a Zaiwu of today. We didn't have a Donk. We didn't have a Simple. We just had people that had an undying passion for the game and wanted to just play at the highest level. I remember in my Sinister 5 days, I was sitting in school and I got a message from Black Poison, and he said to me, "Do you want to join Energy? We're looking at making a change, and you've been an upcoming player." I would tell you right now that I was jumping out of my seat and I was ready to say yes on the spot. I was so excited. The best team in the country finally looked at me and thought that I'm the next best thing. And they said, "Let's go." So I joined Energy Esports, but the problem was at that time my parents didn't allow me to play computer during the week. Now everything leading up to this point I could only play on the weekends. Yeah, I couldn't do team practices or anything. I could only watch and play on the weekends. So I needed to think to myself, what can I do to get my parents to allow me to play during the week? So Valve at that time just posted their player profiles. I think they posted about 5 of them, and the main one that really stood out to my family was Pasha Biceps. There was just something about the work ethic that he had, how he was able to be an athlete and not just a person sitting behind a computer. He was doing a lot of gym, he was doing a lot for Poland. And they looked at me and they said, "Is this what you want to do?" And I said, "Yes, I would love to do this." And they have supported me since that day on. And they are my biggest supporters that no matter what, whenever I've looked bad, whenever I wanted to quit, they have been the people to pick me up and say, "This is not your breaking point." So eventually, when that happened, I was able to join Energy Esports and play during the week. And, for a 16-year-old kid that has now joined the best team in the country and being able to play during the week, I was now able to properly set myself up for success. And what I did was I started to create a routine. Not the biggest routine that I could. I was still going to school at the time, and my school finished at 3 o'clock, and we would generally have practice from 6. So from 3 o'clock until 6, I would watch the demos that I could. I didn't even know that you could watch demos. I was taught in Energy how to watch demos, and I had these binds and everything that I never knew. Once I was done with demos, I would just play Face It. Now in South Africa, you didn't have, with clicking and queue Face It. You would have to join a hub that you would have to pay for. I think at the time it was about $5 to $10 in order to play. And there was only a handful of players. Now, when I would get home, there was often 7 people queuing. So as soon as I got home, generally the first game would start. So it kind of set up pretty good from 3 o'clock. And then I would play about 2 to 3 facets, and then I would go into team practice. And team practice was generally from 6 o'clock at night until 10. So you mainly do 1 hour of theory and 3 scrims if you can get 3 scrims. And one day we were doing practice, and our IGL came up to us and said, we got a we got an opportunity to go and play overseas. We got offered to play in Dubai and India. Both, one was PLG Abu Dhabi, and the other one was DreamHack India or DreamHack Mumbai. So that was the end of chapter 1, guys. I hope you enjoyed. That was just the beginning. There's many more chapters to discover. We're going to be looking at every single part of my journey and my experiences, and I can't wait to share it with you.